There's just too much good music. But these are my top 15 new metal albums from the month of May, starting with Terrifier and Trample the Weak, Devour the Dead. From the first chorus of Trial by Combat, it's clear that this Canadian band still clearly worships the sound of the 80s. Fusing the raging thrash attack of bands like Exodus with some wild melodic death metal riffs, Terrifier are a force to be reckoned with. This album is a veritable fire hose of hooks and shredding solos that should please old school and modern metal fans alike. Seriously, check out Bones of the Slain or Grinding the Blade if you think that the spirit of classic era metal is dead. Renee Wilkinson clearly sold his soul to the devil and devoured the hearts of his contemporaries to achieve this level of guitar proficiency. I was already impressed with 2017's Weapons of Thrash Destruction, but I think this new effort blows that out of the water. Next up we have Kalmah with Kalmah. Another fist-pumping anthemic album from these Finnish melodic death metal legends, now 25 years into their career. The dual guitar work is as stunning and triumphant as ever, especially going into the ripping neoclassical solos. Veli also tearing it up on the keys, but they can also slow things down a bit to break up the action for tracks like Red and Black, No Words Sad Enough, and especially the haunting string-infused closer, Drifting in a Dream. The band described this album as more versatile regarding the songwriting process, with most members contributing at least one track, and I feel as though I can hear that diversity of perspectives coming through as I listen from start to finish. Check out my Kalmah tier list to see where this landed within their larger discography, but just know that it's one of the best melodic death metal albums of the year so far. Next up is Pronostic with Chaotic Upheaval. There's a lot for progressive death metal fans to love about this Canadian band. These guys are incredible musicians, which is a fact that is put front and center throughout these compositions, from the dizzying conclusion impromptu to the more melodic and piano-infused Concealed Parasite. Think incredible drumming, bass, and guitar work on par with the likes of Obscura, Beyond Creation, and First Fragment. I will say there are some elements keeping me from absolutely loving this thing, namely the very berating loudness wars production, and the instruments and vocals often feeling like they're fighting for space within the mix, but the impressively technical, jazz-infused performances are enough for me to largely look past that. Next up is Vexing with Grand Reproach. Imagine if primitive man didn't think that life was just an endless tunneling void of misery and instead took some more progressive notes from the likes of Arma. That's basically Vexing. And notably, primitive man's own Ethan Lee McCarthy did the artwork for this album. One that feels like a vessel of tortured souls churning its way across the river Styx, but also with the occasional glimmers of light. Tracks like Blunderbuss and Small Black Flame are punishing and harrowing stuff, the latter especially seeming to pay tribute to albums like Arma's Gallows, while others like The Invisible Hand and Howling offer some more melodic moments whose contrast only makes the dark moments all the more punishing, in my opinion.
Yes. There can be no light without the dark.
Then we have VHS with Quest for the Mighty Riff. Man, Canada is just taking over this month.
Canadians will rise together!
I covered this band's previous album on an episode of Best of Bandcamp last year, but now they turn their attention from vampires to monsters and black magic in their quest to metalize all of the sleaziest B-movie trends. Think of them as the Troma films of death metal and grindcore. And in addition to their own degenerate, crusty antics, expect several guest appearances from Hellripper's James McBain, Exhumed and Gruesome's Matt Harvey, and more. If you like campy death metal and also look forward to watching Conan the Barbarian and the Highlander back-to-back for the 100th time, this is the album for you.
In the end, there can be only one.
Then we have Kosnat Yeni with Upal. I'll be frank, save for a few releases, I found this to be a very dull year for black metal so far, so I'm so thankful to finally get something that sounds genuinely interesting. Much like Imperial Triumphant or Deathspell Omega, Kos Net Yeni perfectly mold elements of dissonance and avant-garde into something strangely palatable, as if the album is a wild horse that primary songwriter and musician DL is attempting to tame. Technical guitars meld with meditative atmosphere, African folk, and elements of noise rock to craft something that is so far beyond the endless parade of paint-by-numbers, Darkthrone, and Dissection clones. Don't get me wrong, there's a place for those things too, but for me, first and foremost, this channel is about highlighting music that goes against the grain, and this absolutely does that. Switching things up again, we have Battleborn with blood, fire, magic, and steel.
The wretched tyrant wields his fork-tongue as a blade in the White Skull Tower.
Last month's token power metal album was Powerwolf, and this time it's Battleborn putting a smile on my face and my fist in the air. How could I say no to an album with a battle axe wielding shredded bear man on the cover? But camp aside, the music is also really good. From the chugging guitars and soaring synth lines to the, well, magical vocal harmonies, tracks like Blood and Fire are an absolute blast. Again, I'm not a big power metal fan, but I find it hard to believe that anyone who enjoys fun in general would not find themselves singing along to this. And for those who do love stuff like Blind Guardian, you're definitely going to want to check this out.
We're raiding dungeons and fighting dragons.
Next up is Spinebreaker with Cavern of Inoculated Cognition. It's always hard to sift through the mountain of death metal albums I get every month to decide which ones I feel deserve the spotlight, but this EP with band members from Rip to Shreds and Gulch definitely won me over. It's that no-nonsense, cavernous death metal calling back to the 90s, but something about their particular execution just feels a cut above the rest. The atmosphere is just so perfectly grimy, I can almost smell the mildew in the air, and the vocals have a truly monstrous presence, sounding like a cave troll lumbering towards you in the darkness. Nothing particularly new or special, but definitely well done and worth a listen. Next up is Unearth with The Wretched, The Ruinous. To be honest, this is the first time in a long time I was getting full-on the Oncoming Storm vibes, which is just one of the most important albums of my high school years. The verses are crazy heavy and the melodic leads are triumphant as fuck. Like seriously, I can't believe how long some of these riffs go on at the speed that they do. It's like an endless torrent of melodic picking in the vein of As I Lay Dying, Killswitch Engage, and August Burns Red. And solid dynamics too, jumping between everything from the thrashier Dawn of the Militant to the more melodic Into the Abyss. I've got to say, as someone who had sort of relegated these guys to the back of the line in terms of classic metalcore acts that are still dropping new material, I am very impressed. This is not only one of their best albums to date, but also one of the best metalcore albums of the year so far, and honestly, I think even people who don't like metalcore can find something to love about this album. Then we have Trolled with Devour Endgang. I have been dying for some good folk metal, so I was very pleased to see this Danish band end up in my inbox and going all in with the mead-swinging flutes, mandolins, and accordions. Right from the opening track Hexen, it's clear that this is music made for drinking and all activities that tend to follow it. If I do have a point of criticism, it's that the songs are pretty darn similar, but the energy is always there, so I don't necessarily mind that much. The clean vocals on Sen Sommerbelet are a nice touch. I'd be interested in hearing more of that, and Dansen med Mertil also stands out with that fun little kind of glockenspiel solo. Regardless, it's a great mix of atmosphere and headbanging fun. Then we have Nightmare with Deformity Adrift. I instantly fell in love with 2018's Cacophony of Terror, which is sitting on the shelf behind me, and this follow-up continues with that same ferocious flurry of chaotic guitars and drumming. Think of it as a cross between the groove-ridden infectiousness of Meshuggah with the more strange and dissonant elements of bands like Artificial Brain. And really, that's a difficult balance to find, so my hat's off once more for this band bringing complex and challenging performances in a package that is still relatively palatable for those still making the transition from more broad and traditional death metal. And in spite of the short runtime, the reverb-heavy production makes the journey feel absolutely massive and utterly harrowing. Next up is Drain with Living Proof. If you dig bands like Knocked Loose and Stray from the Path, you should also be listening to Drain. I saw plenty of praise for their 2020 album California Cursed, and Living Proof continues to bring that classic 90s hardcore spirit with just a touch of crossover energy. Nothing mind-blowing, but at a lean 26 minutes, it's pure attitude with plenty of headbanging and mosh pit energy to get you two-stepping. Heavy, fun stuff, and even with the occasional death growl, as well as a cover of the Descendants' Good Good Things. Then possibly my favorite band name on this list, it's Godslut with Procreation of God. Seriously, what an amazing band name for a group that sounds just as in-your-face and sacrilegious as you'd expect. This Polish trio is a true unholy fusion of death and thrash metal that feels like Vader and Decapitated on bath salts. Blazing riffs and scorching solos torch their way through the album, leaving nothing but smoldering ruin by the time Chaos chugs to its final note. Even when the band slows things down for tracks like Dragged into Heaven, there's no relief from this hellfire. But with drumming from Pavulon of Polish grindcore project Anti-Gamma, faster tracks like Against are as vicious as they come. Then it's Blindfolded and Led to the Woods with Rejecting Obliteration. Another one of my more anticipated underground metal albums this year, and it's great to see these New Zealanders deservedly rising in the ranks with the support of Prosthetic Records. Every track has something a little different to offer, with the raging Methlehem seeming to mash up Meshuggah with pummeling hardcore, while hallucinative Terror alternates ethereal clean guitars and wind instruments with the dissonant sounds of Gorguts and again Artificial Brain. I'd even vaguely describe Wraith as Ulcerate meets Rivers of Nihil. In other words, like its predecessor Nightmare Withdrawals, Rejecting Obliteration continues to defy concise genre labels with its own unique fusion of technical death metal, post-metal, progressive, and much, much more. And that brings us to my favorite metal album of May, and that is Cattle Decapitation with Terracite. The boys have outdone themselves once again. Fantastic singles here with Travis covering the full spectrum of his vocal acrobatics on We Eat Our Young, and Scourge of the Offspring is even better with verses that go so hard with some really fantastic drumming, but then offset by another soaring melodic goblin chorus. But then the deeper cuts are equally awesome. Love the super gnarly phlegmy vocals and riffing on the Insignificance. Aphotic Doom, Dead End Residence, Solastalgia, and The Storm Upstairs bring more of that serious stank face groove. And then we close with the epic 10+ minute Just Another Body. Personally, I like this album even more than Death Atlas. Again, check out my tier list for my full discography ranking. Also in this playlist, rankings for Kalmah, Devil Driver, Veil of Maya, and Unearth. And you can also check out this playlist for more of my favorite metal albums of 2023 by month. Let me know down in the comments what were your favorite metal albums this month as well, but that'll do it for now. Flight of Icarus signing off. I will see you in the trenches.